That's me. They get all intimidated.
Good evening and welcome to the San Bruno City Council meeting of January 8th, 2013. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Salazar.
Here.
Vice Mayor O'Connell. Here. Mayor Ruane.
Here.
Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Ibarra. Hi. Here.
I'd like to thank the Garden Club for the arrangement they always provide for our meetings. Thank you. Carol, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We don't have any specific announcements this evening. We do have a presentation, and that's to receive an update from the San Mateo County Mosquito and Vector Control District. Mr. Rico.
My assistant, your assistant, Ben Russmeisel from the district is going to help us get started. I want to thank you and the council and the city for allowing us to give you a quick little update. Basically, we want to help keep San Bruno mosquito free. So we're going to talk about mosquitoes in San Bruno, and if I can make this work. Okay, I'll push the right button and go this way. The task of the mosquito district is basically to keep San Bruno mosquitoes free. There are three or five, I forgot which, varieties of mosquitoes that are prevalent sporadically throughout the year. So there's always somewhere in the county, a couple in this area, mosquitoes all the time. So it's not just 2 or 3 month. We're here to serve you. The San Mateo County Mosquito and Vector Control District serves San Bruno. They respond to residents' requests regarding mosquitoes, rodents, yellow jackets, etc. Recently, as your appointed trustee, I attended a half-day trustee day, which we have every year, where we were brought up to date on a whole lot of things, and I want to summarize a little bit of that. And part of the reason that Ben is here today is the aspect that I like best of trustee day is I get to sit down with Ben for a half hour or whatever, pick his brains. He gets to complain to me or tell me where there are good and bad things. So I'm going to try and cover a little bit of that. Also, after the trustee day, which I haven't done for 3 or 4 years, I took about 2 hours and I rode around with Ben. We were out in the Mills Field area. We were tromping around. You'll see a couple pictures of what he does on a weekly, almost a weekly, if not more often basis, and to keep San Bruno mosquito free. Also, before trustee day, the last couple of years, I've sent him 3 or 4 questions relative to where are there problems or specific aspects of San Bruno, and he was able to research these, and I'm going to go through some of the questions and his answers. I asked him if there were any habitual problem areas, and his answer, since he took over San Bruno in May, and the district every 2 or 3 years rotates the technicians around, so he had been down the peninsula, but he's been with the district for 10 years, thereabouts? Okay, so he'd only been up here since since May, but the district does have real good computer records, and so he was able to say that there are basically no habitual problem areas. Most of the impound type sources are only now beginning to fill up with water. However, Ben predicts that Mills Field will present an ongoing challenge, and I have some pictures to show about Mills Field as a potential to produce a large number of mosquitoes. Most of the focus will be spent on inspection, treatment, and to keep the population of the mosquitoes at a minimum. The district tries to treat and kill the larva stage of the mosquito before they get in the stage that flies off. So if we the district, Ben does his job right, you won't see the mosquitoes flying around. This is just pictures that we took a week or so back. This is out in the Mills Field area. This is some of the area impound, as they call it, standing water that needs to be sampled, needs to be treated. There are tules out there. This is under the the overpass going into the airport. There are tule areas out there, and let me go to this. Whoops, go back. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I asked him what assistance the city of San Bruno staff, like possibly the Parks Department, could offer from time to time. And the preface on this, when we were having a lot of dead birds found, the Park Department stepped up last year and asked and got the buy-in from your various employees that work out in the park, excuse me, to be more eyes, and if they found these dead birds, they promptly reported them to the district. And Ben's answer was that the parks in the city of San Bruno are in all-around good shape. They do have water runoff that flows through the park, but it's fed from above sources and tends to move unobstructed. He did notice that some of the grassier areas at times are oversaturated even in the summer, and perhaps the park department could either try to water less or take other actions to maybe avoid pooling in the grassy areas. The mosquitoes need a non-moving water to breed. If there's a lot of water movement or a lot of air movement, they will not breed as readily. This just shows where there is controlled water flowing through the park. As long as it's flowing, it's not a real concern. But I'm sure Ben checks these every once in a while when he does do his sampling. Asked him about how well, or are there problem areas that the district has encountered working with the San Francisco airport, since it's adjacent to the San Bruno city limits, if you will. Basically, Mills Field is in the airport jurisdiction, and Ben says there have been no issues with the airport regarding the access and or treatment to Mills Field. Another question, how well, or are there problems working with Caltran, where their tracks run through San Bruno? A year or so ago, early in the construction, there was some standing water problems with Caltran through the district. We reported that to Caltran, and they cleaned that up real quickly. And Ben says that so far the current grade separation is, or his answer, the grade separation project has not interfered in any way with mosquito inspection or treatment. Also, we asked, or I asked, were there problems with the school district? Some of the schools in the past had reported ground nesting yellow jackets, and if the school can basically pinpoint where the nests are, the mosquito district will go out and eradicate them. There had only been one school, John Muir, which had an ongoing problem with ground nesting yellow jackets, and then treated roughly 5 nests up there on the property. He is on a first name basis with Dr. Dunleavy, the principal, and I think they've even exchanged cell numbers so that as necessary she can call him directly. I've talked to her in the past on this, and she is real happy with the response. This is just showing a picture of John Muir School. Information on the result of the newly installed storm drain screening as it relates to additional time that the district may have to spend to adequately inspect and treat the hundreds of storm drains opening in the city. And Ben's answer is that the storm drain screening had not prevented regular spraying of the catch basin. The spray wands can fit through the holes. During heavy rains, though, however, leaf litter and I didn't push anything. I'll go on without that. The city had been very responsive in listening to the request and cleaning up the garbage in the gutters. So everything has been going good on that project. I had a picture of the storm drain, but basically they put a metal perforated grate vertically at the back under the raised concrete. We also asked, are there any aspects or problems that the district has with the, if present, with the city of San Bruno or its residents that could become a big concern in improving or correcting. And Ben said the best thing residents can do to help eliminate mosquito breeding sources is to, that's all right, I don't need it, Miriam, I can work without it, is to dump out containers that fill with rainwater, maintain their ponds or fountains better, and if they do not currently receive our services, we do supply mosquito fish for ponds. They can call and one of our technicians will inspect and or treat the source, and if it's really a source that needs constant updating or monitoring, they will put it in their database, and that triggers them to go out more often. I had a picture of standing water on a sidewalk, happened I think be outside of John Muir down on Crestmore. It's standing water. It's not one that you can dump, but if residents have standing water like that, they can take the broom, they can take the rake or whatever and try and move it away. If there's a lot of car traffic and a lot of wind movement, it will not as readily offer a location for the mosquitoes to breed. But any water is bad if it's standing. Also, I had a slide in there that at your December council meeting, Public Works Director Jim Porter reported that he was getting emergency permits to do work in Cupid's Row and clean some of the tulies out, and we were able to see when Ben and I went out a couple of weeks ago that they had done that, and the water was moving much faster through there and obviously wouldn't overflow, but the faster it moves, the less that it is a problem for Ben or the residents. Relative to the Crestmore rebuild area, Ben said that work in the Crestmore neighborhood is well underway and currently presents no problems with access. In the past, there had been certain roads that were diverted, but currently everything is acceptable and he can get to where he needs to go. He had a couple of general comments. I kind of asked him if the district was supplying him with all the tools, the education, the background that he needed so that we could expect him to do what we expected him to do. That's a bad sentence, but anyhow. Ben advised me that he felt that he had all the tools and resources to continue to inspect and treat San Bruno areas of concern. He felt that the summer hires, who you can see driving around in the white right-hand drive Jeeps, are a big help with him because it frees him up to respond to service calls and keep the district on a schedule for about once a month, inspecting and treating every storm drain in San Bruno. And there's like, what, 30,000 or something? Maybe that's too big, but I mean, they attempt to treat every one of the storm drains once a month. He also felt that he was offered and has taken advantage of many of the continuing education classes, so he's staying on top of the latest methods for inspection and treatment. Our lab director discussed a number of ways the district will be expanding our testing and surveillance to better and more promptly respond to finding of positives in the county. We don't want the positives, but the faster that we can find them, the faster that the district can respond and take appropriate action. We will still send secondary samples to the state to let them double check, but it will allow us to respond quicker. The lab is now going to be able to do more in-house testing on resistance to the, I hate to use the word chemicals, on the agents, the bacterial agents that we use. We switch from time to time, and so we can make sure that the mosquitoes don't become less susceptible to what we're using to treating. The one thing downstream that the district is going to be more aware of is there's an Asian tiger mosquito that has started to show up in Southern California. It is really bad with some of the things that it can carry, so we are going to start testing as necessary. There we go. Thank you, Miriam. Up here. So kind of wrapping it up, continuing success, we're going to have more surveillance, we're going to have faster testing, That will mean faster treatment, fewer mosquito problem, and hopefully a happier mosquito-free San Bruno. And if you have questions, the district phone number is 344-8592. Ben is here tonight, and he would attempt to answer questions if you have questions. Tomorrow and beyond, I am your appointed trustee, and I will either answer your questions or direct them to the district and report back. And
Thank you,
so
Robert.
Ben and I are happy to answer any questions, or thank you again for the opportunity.
Any questions of our representative?
Yes,
Ken?
Mr. Mayor. Bob and Ben, I guess, thank you for all your efforts. It just crossed my mind when you said the Crestmore rebuild, which is adjacent, which was adjacent to the canyon, and we do have
I don't know what he's going to ask.
we do have significant canyon area. Have you gone through the canyons and see if there's any standing water or little pockets here and there that may not be accessible?
Well, as far as the canyons are concerned, at this time of year, the water is usually moving pretty fast, and it's draining properly. However, in the summertime, it does pothole up, and those areas, which are mostly creeks, are on a checklist that get trimmed and or treated by us on a monthly schedule.
And my other question is that we do have a couple of multifamily developments, like the Place and Shelter Creek, and there's significant landscaping all over. I mean, are they cooperating, in making sure that their homeowners and their residents are being prudent in taking care of standing water?
I'm not aware of any issues in that area. Most of the time with newer developments, they're drained. Oh, they're older ones. I'm sorry. I'm not entirely familiar with the area you're referring to, but yeah, the drainage is usually pretty good in those areas.
Okay.
Any other questions? Well, Robert, once again, thank you for all the time you put in. I know it's pretty extensive.
It allows me to be happy to give you good reports.
Good. Thank you very much. Item 5, review of the agenda. Any changes? Okay. Item 6, approval of the minutes of the regular city council meetings of November 27th and December 11th, 2012. Any errors, changes, omissions? Seeing none, they will.
On November 27th, I had a, excuse me,
Carol?
I had entered Councilmember Salazar nominated Tim Ross to the Citizens Crime Prevention and passed with one eye, and I should have had failed with one eye.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Let the minutes stand approved as amended. Thank you. Item 7, consent calendar. All items are considered routine or implemented early of council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested by a council member, citizen, or staff.
Through the chair,
Rico?
the request moving item D,
Item D.
please.
Okay. Anything else?
If there's nothing else, move to approve the rest of the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion second on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Item D, adopt a resolution approving the submittal of a proposal to San Mateo County Area Agency on Aging for Older Americans Act funding of senior center programs for fiscal years 2013-2015.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only reason I had pulled this was just to acknowledge not only the great activity and work that is done, but also to acknowledge in our staff report that this comes from the fundraising efforts, participants, donations from the senior citizens, as well as from the nonprofit Nutrition Site Council. And so they put a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort into helping to offset some of the costs so this program can continue on and be as successful as it is. Didn't mean for you to have to get up, John, but if you wanted to add anything, you're welcome to, but please do if you want. So I just wanted to acknowledge, unless there's something else you want to add.
All I want to say is that having been responsible for the program for the last 7 months, I myself am very encouraged and impressed by what the seniors do. Seeing it up close is really something really quite amazing. So thank you for your comment.
Thank you, sir.
Action on item D.
There's no other comment.
Go ahead.
Move to approve item D.
Second.
Motion and second on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 8, we have a public hearing this evening. That is hold a public hearing, waive the first reading, and introduce an ordinance of the City of San Bruno, adding Chapter 10.25 reusable bag ordinance to regulate the distribution of single-use carry-out bags by retail establishments to Title 10 Municipal Services of the San Bruno Municipal Code.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I want to make some brief introductory comments and then turn over the presentation to Lisa Costa-Sanders, who has been working with city staff to shepherd this ordinance and the program it represents through the city process. This initiative was first conceived, if you will, by the City Council a number of years ago, back in approximately 2008 when we began talking about sustainable initiatives, and the City Council determined that it wanted to move forward with the elimination of non-recyclable food, takeout food serviceware. And that initiative, as the Council is fully aware, was put into effect by the City Council in 2009 and ultimately with its effective date in the spring of 2010. At the time that the Council began this discussion and consideration and its overall strategy for sustainability initiatives, the Council identified an interest in, and particularly the discussion at that time was about plastic bags, but generally about single-use and non-recyclable products. At that time, the City of Oakland, and I believe the City of San Francisco, was being challenged on similar initiatives because they had not completed an environmental impact report. And it was the Council's interest and direction to staff. We keep our eye on this topic area and essentially wait and look at how this environmental impact report issue could be addressed. We came back to you in May of this past year, in 2012, with the initiative that has been shepherded by the county's Environmental Health Department. Dean Peterson, the director of that department, is in the audience tonight, and he'll be available to answer your questions and help you sort out the various issues associated with this ordinance as we move forward tonight. But it just would, again, identify that this issue came to you through you initially, and it is, although it's been a very, very long time, the effort to coordinate on a region-wide initiative presents certain opportunities and as well as potentially certain challenges as we move forward to promote sustainable initiatives throughout our county. So with that, I would ask Lisa to make some specific comments.
Thank you very much. Good evening, council members. The item before you this evening is consideration of an ordinance that would regulate the distribution of single-use carry-out bags at retail establishments. As City Manager Jackson just mentioned, the council has long been concerned with the negative environmental impacts caused by the distribution of plastic bags, and the city has recently participated in the countywide effort to regulate single-use bags. This effort includes preparation of a uniform ordinance that would be adopted countywide by jurisdictions, as well as the city being included in the environmental impact report that was prepared by the county. The ordinance itself prohibits the distribution of single-use plastic bags and requires a minimum charge for the distribution of paper bags or reusable bags. And that minimum charge starts at 10 cents per bag and increases to 25 cents per bag in January of 2015. There are a few exemptions to the ordinance. That includes the use of produce bags, like you would maybe put your onions in, or your meat from that department, bags for prescription medicine, bags to segregate food or merchandise that could damage or contaminate other merchandise. Restaurants and takeout food establishments would also be exempted, as well as nonprofit charitable organizations. Also, the paper bag charge would not apply to customers that participate in the WIC program or food stamps program. This ordinance does further our NPDES waste reduction goal. We propose an implementation date of Earth Day, which is April 22nd, 2013, for the ordinance to take effect. This will provide stores time to utilize their plastic bag stock, purchase new reusable bags, and time to inform customers of this change. The City Council initially heard a presentation in May of last year, and we have several community outreach meetings planned to better inform retailers and customers, residents of these new regulations. An article was included in the fall focus edition, providing an overview of the proposed ordinance, and we've also mailed a letter to all retail establishments, inviting them to an informational meeting on January 16th at 9 a.m. at City Hall, and a residential informational meeting on January 17th at 6 p.m. at City Hall. If the City Council chooses to adopt the ordinance, staff will distribute informational materials to retailers, which will include flyers, tent cards for the cashier stations, and information on where they can purchase reusable bags. The County Department of Environmental Health staff will take the lead on enforcing the ordinance in San Bruno, as well as in all the jurisdictions that adopt the model ordinance, and this is at no cost to the city. County staff is here this evening to respond to any questions you may have. As I noted earlier, San Bruno was included in the environmental impact report prepared by the county that analyzes the impacts of implementation of the ordinance. No negative impacts were identified in the environmental impact report, and that document was certified by the county. Staff recommends that the council consider the resolution making the CEQA findings before you consider the ordinance itself. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Good. Before we open the public hearing, any questions from staff at this time? Ken?
Where does the 10 cents go?
The 10 cents would be maintained by the retailers to recover their cost of purchasing the bags, as well as we do have a reporting requirement where we're asking them to retain records of the sale of those reusable bags for a period of 3 years for the point of sale. So it helps cost recover that time as well.
And what is that? You know, and that's clear in the staff report. What are they trying to gather from this 3 years of reporting?
What data are we looking to gather?
Yeah, just the data, just how many bags gets, you know, or how many people.
And it's also twofold, and I'll have Dean Peterson answer the question relating to the information we're gathering, but it's also to discourage people from, you know, choosing to purchase that bag. Thank you.
That's correct. Good evening, Council. Dean Peterson, your Environmental Health Director. It's always a pleasure being in San Bruno. And on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, they'd like to thank you for being patient and waiting for the regional effort to go through and not moving ahead so that we could truly do on to that. As Lisa indicated, the main thing is keeping track so that we can make sure that they are selling the bags or not giving the bags away. The tracking aspect of it will help with putting together the information we need to help with the NPDES permit also, but it's mainly going to be to make sure that the stores are actually selling the bags and not giving them away.
What's wrong with the stores just giving the bags? I mean, they're recyclable bags, or they're reusable bags, or they're paper bags. What's wrong with that?
Right. So the environmental impact report took a look at paper bags, and really the result of that indicated that paper bags are not really any better than plastic bags. And so the 10-cent charge is to discourage the use of paper bags, and is to encourage reusable bags. So what we found in other jurisdictions that were not charging, people were simply just going to paper, which increased paper, which increases transportation costs, transportation greenhouse gases, and then eventually decomposition of those bags.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Michael?
Chair, thank you. So why not ban paper bags?
The environmental impact report did take a look at that as being one of the alternatives to ban paper bags. We felt, so this again is a regional effort. So we had 24 hands in this pot coming up with this policy. And at the end of the day, when we looked at the alternatives, it was determined that that would have been too big of a change. However, what we're seeing in San Jose and in Monterey County and in Sunnyvale and even San Francisco, people are not buying the paper bags. The 10-cent charge seems to be enough. They're either bringing the reusable bags in or they're carrying stuff out in their hands or in their carts. And so at this point, we felt that banning paper was just going a little bit too far, a little too drastic for the consumers at this point.
Okay. And if 10 cents is enough to discourage people from using the bags, why bump it up?
later?
The theory is that initially 10 cents is enough, but eventually we become immune or numb to 10 cents, and so we have the ability to change it up to 25 cents if that is happening. I do know that the city of San Jose is actually considering not increasing theirs to 25 cents when it goes into it because they are having such an effect, and that would be an option that we could take a look at as we develop and look at more information out there.
And at that point, when it gets bumped, it's no longer a cost recovery for the sellers, but rather it's strictly as a deterrent.
That's true. It truly is a deterrent at that point, yes.
But then the increased fee would still stay with the business owners.
It would, yes.
Okay. Could be a money-making venture for them. I also had a question about, it specifically identifies a thickness of plastic that would be considered, the ban would apply to things that are, to bags that are less than 2.25 mils thick. And could a retailer potentially go to a 3 mil bag and sidestep this regulation?
Absolutely they could, and that's the reason that in the ordinance there's a minimum charge of 10 cents on either a paper or a reusable bag.
Okay.
So that thickness of the bag is considered reusable, and that was the loophole that we closed because that was happening in San Jose and in Sunnyvale where stores were simply going to a thicker plastic bag and giving that away for free. So the 10 cents is still there to discourage that.
Okay, so it's still an option for them.
It's still an option, and because we do look at those thicker bags as being a viable bag, because consumers use those over and over and over, they're not the thin ones that tear fairly easily. So they are considered a reusable bag.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair. I had some questions on that line of the 10 cents to 25 cents, and also there's obviously critics that would say it's more energy and jobs and all that with the paper bags going away from plastic. That's just what the critics will say that we've watched on the news. So I don't know how we answer that as far as it takes more energy for that. Maybe I'll let you answer that first. I had another question on fines.
Sure. Lisa, do you mind if I take the question?
I apologize.
Yeah, so,
Lisa or whoever. You
That's
determine.
fine. Thank you very much.
Your call.
through the mayor. On the energy use, that was something that was looked at in the EIR, and it was evaluated to be determined on how much energy use was going to happen. At the end result, with the use of reusable bags, there is an overall reduction in energy use. As far as the job aspect of it, looking at it, pretty much every company out there that makes plastic bags or paper bags also makes a reusable bag. We also see this as an ability by reusable bags for local cottage industry, for my aunt to make them and sell them at the farmer's market. So we see an ability to have more of a local business aspect to it by having reusable bags made local in the community.
And then on the fines within this, obviously, there are fines that are $100 for the first violation, $200, and $500. So this is run and done by the county, who actually does enforcement. So my question to that is, how much does this cost? So how much more additional cost to the county is it to go ahead and go out and we'll say, look for violations?
Right.
And if a business is not charging the dime, are they also fined similar to this?
Like all of our ordinances that we do, we're really there about compliance. We're not there to fine and enforce. Fines will only come into place if we have recalcitrant businesses that truly do not listen to our consultations and do not, make the efforts to move forward. Those fines would be retained by the county. And as we have in other cities that have adopted our ordinance by reference, the commitment the county has is if we end up fining businesses within San Bruno, that money would then go back into outreach into that specific area. So we would then redouble our efforts to outreach into the areas. Does that answer your question, sir?
So the initiation is to educate and try to reach out and communicate.
Absolutely,
and not just
absolutely.
Go.
I mean, that amount of fines, quite frankly, the efforts we would need to do to collect those fines are much greater than the fines themselves. And so it's really there because we need fines and ordinances, but it's all about compliance and working with the businesses like we have done in all of our other programs within environmental health.
Is there any idea of what that cost is to the county to educate, outreach, implement? oversee?
It is within my budget. It's within my pollution prevention program. The funding, because that has been asked where the county is getting the funding to be able to provide this. There's really no additional staff for this because we already have staff out in the field looking at different items, and so it adds on to it. But the county receives a certain portion, a certain percentage of tipping fees that go across the Ox Mountain landfill that help to fund programs for programs that keep things out of the landfill. And so we're able to use some of that money to fund the outreach for whether it's our polystyrene ordinance or the bag ordinance.
And I appreciate all the questions. So, and if somebody did not charge the dime, there would be a potential violation if they continued?
It would be a violation. Again, yes, there would be. And so we would work with them and find out the reasons why they couldn't and get them into compliance.
Okay, that's all my questions for now.
Good. Can I ask one last while he's up? Is there any record of an organ or a jurisdiction that implemented a recycling program for single-use bags, plastic bags?
The state of California has been trying to encourage citizens to recycle plastic bags for almost a decade now, and that rate is around 5%. It just does not seem to be working. The only city that I know that allows it into their curbside is, I believe it's Mountain View or possibly Santa Clara. And other than that, there's no other recycling that's allowed curbside.
Maybe not necessarily curbside, and maybe not just locally, but nationally. Is there any program that you know of that, they instigated a recycling program where various ways that people can come in and recycle the bags or?
Again, the only one I'm very familiar with is the California one, and that's where you can bring these bags back to the grocery stores, and they're required by law to collect them from the citizens. And that is only showing a 5 to 8% recycling rate, so that just does not seem to be working.
Yeah. But that wasn't really a strict ordinance, or there wasn't any?
It's a state law requiring the grocery stores of certain size to have a program to take the bags back and to advertise that they can. So you'll see a sign outside of the grocery stores indicating bring your bag back, but that's really all that.
But not at this level of implementation.
Correct, not at this level.
Thank you.
Correct. We see this as being unfortunately a local effort that needs to be happened. We'd prefer it to be California or federal, but it has to be local.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Dean. This time I'd like to open the public hearing. Anyone from the public like to make a comment on this item? Mr. Rico?
Robert Rico, I have a question for Dean. I got at Christmas some disposable recycled bags or disposable plastic bags that are supposed to decompose over 8 months or whatever. How do they work into the overall program? Hypothetically, if the grocery store or whatever was to find a supplier that did their single-use bag out of a decomposable or compostable bag, would that fit in, or would that still be not acceptable?
Through the mayor, thank you for that question, because it is a question that comes up. It's a question we looked at is why are we including compostable bags with the plastic bags? And there's really two reasons for it. The one thing is for a compostable bag to truly decompose, it needs to be in the right environment. And that is not a backyard composting bin. That is going to be at a compost facility. And in speaking with Recology and a number of the other curbside composting, is their facilities just really aren't capable of taking that material in. And so when we look at that, is we then look at how does these bags act in the environment, and a compostable plastic bag and a petroleum-based plastic bag acts exactly the same in the environment, clogging the storm drains, getting into trash inceptors, clogging a machine. It is not going to decompose in the environment. It needs to be in a composting facility.
Any of the members of the public like to address us about this issue? If I close the public hearing, you're going to be precluded from discussing this with us any longer. Any action?
Second.
Close the public hearing.
Motion
Second.
Second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Discussion or action by the council? Irene?
Well, as you know, the Beautification Task Force, through their Operation Clean Sweep, have supported this by giving out reusable bags for the last 8 years, and we will continue to do so. So if you, after this ordinance passes, the first Saturday in May, if you want to come to Operation Clean Sweep and help, we will hand out a bag for you, a reusable bag. So unless there's other comments, I would like to introduce the resolution.
There is.
Oh, sorry.
Through the chair.
Michael?
Thank you. I think this is a good idea, and in reading just the history of this, I think a number of countries have done this on a national level. A lot of the cities are doing it, and clearly something we need to address. I did speak with the city manager earlier, and I had some questions about outreach. I believe we haven't had much feedback from the local retailers, but I was curious to know who we had contacted at the larger chains, and if we had heard anything back in terms of their ability to comply.
I'm going to ask Lisa to respond more directly, but I did check on that issue and was advised that in every case where we had the opportunity to identify a direct contact, somebody local, obviously, that we did so. In addition to that, we are working with the Chamber of Commerce, as Lisa indicated, to host a business informational session, and we're outreaching to Tanforan, but we will certainly, over the next days and weeks, should it be the council's direction to proceed, then we will redouble our efforts to make sure that the people here in San Bruno who have some responsibility for the operation of the business are adequately informed. Make sure that that outreach is provided directly to each of the local businesses to any extent that we haven't already done that.
We did do direct mail to all businesses in our business license listing, so that does also include businesses that would be exempt for the ordinance one, make sure everybody was aware of it. And then as Ms. Jackson mentioned, we're going to do direct visits. I spoke to the manager at Molly Stone, and they were already aware of it. I've spoken to other retailers, they're already aware of it. I think it really helps. It's the county-wide effort, so a lot of those larger businesses are already aware of it from their other facilities.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Ken or Rico?
Well, I'm just gonna, I had a long dissertation I wanted to explain, and I'm gonna say I don't like it, but then again, when recycling came about, I didn't like that, and I am a very avid recycler. I actually pulled a bunch of plastic bottles out of a bin the other night because I just can't.
Somebody else's bin? Or?
Someone else's bin, because it was not in the appropriate bin.
That's what the police call us for.
I thank the Beautification Task Force because I still have that reusable bag, and I have converted. But to eliminate plastic bags, to me, without going by the wayside as far as our recycling programs from many years back and everything, it would have been just as easy for me to say I can take the plastic bags and then they can be recycled, and I can put those plastic bags in another container. They don't take up a lot of space. I mean, we stuffed them in paper towel holders, for years. I just don't like the idea that we're eliminating. I mean, and to say that single-use carry bags comes the highest percentage of litter, which is unsightly. So does this mean that there's not going to be any more litter? What's left? Paper. So is that what we're going towards? I was going to make a statement and vote no on this, but I think I'm in favor of it, but I just don't like the way we went about it, and I just wanted to make that point, and I'm glad that there's no single-use bag manufacturers that are going to go out of business because of this, that they have also converted. So that's my point.
Rico?
My point was similar to Councilmember Salazar's, because I was wondering, and I did ask the city manager what kind of feedback or response we've had from the community. I know the objective is Earth Day, but I'm worried about San Bruno's Day, in the sense of, is 3 months enough time? We're going to have meetings on the 16th and the 17th. Not saying not everybody will welcome this with open arms, but if that's not the case, to me, when we introduce an ordinance, it's because staff has recommended, and it's because the council has taken the action to say, this is what's happening. And now make the necessary changes or what you need to do in order to operate your business or the community appropriately. Doesn't mean we can't introduce the ordinance and not keep the April date or not read the second reading and postpone that. My concern is it's always a cart before the horse, and I had wished that we had reached out a little bit sooner to the community, the businesses that are affected, as in the styrofoam. I think we realized that we had to postpone that a little bit. We had to get educated. There was an issue of course, the type of products that they had available to them in lieu of the ones they were currently using. So, though I'm not enjoying everything I see here and have some concerns, you know, I'm going to go ahead and support the introduction, but I am concerned and do want to hear the feedback that we get from the community on the 16th, 17th, and any calls that the clerk may receive or information that she gets, so that we're appraised, because maybe this April date, Earth Day, is a noble reason to have it, but I want to make sure it's right for San Bruno.
Anyone else? I think this is a very good thing. This is a very long time coming. Should have come a lot sooner, and that's my dissertation. Irene?
Do you want more dissertation?
No, I want a motion.
Well, I move to waive the first reading.
Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor, if we can
Yes.
interrupt for just a second. The suggestion is that you adopt the resolution first and then subsequently introduce the ordinance.
Okay.
Just to have it go in the right order.
See, I was right.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'll introduce the adopt the ordinance.
Sorry, just to clarify.
Yes.
So
Clarify.
the first action is you're adopting the resolution making the CEQA findings.
I see. Okay.
And then the
Let's
second
start
action
over
would
again.
be to introduce the resolution.
All right.
Or excuse
I'd
me,
like
the
to
ordinance.
adopt the resolution.
No,
Maybe we should
introduce
postpone
resolution.
for a couple
Introduce
meetings or something?
resolution. I'm totally confused.
Could we go back and I
We
get
need a
who
motion.
seconded?
Well, a motion first, and then we introduce.
The motion for the waiving the first reading? You?
No, he
No.
said I did that wrong.
Okay.
Let's try it over
Withdraw
again. That
that.
was my fault. I apologize.
But
Okay.
Carol's asking about closing the public hearing.
Oh, we did that already.
Right.
The
You'd
public
like to make
hearing
that
has been
motion?
closed.
Was that you?
No.
Close the public hearing was myself.
Yeah.
Okay. We're
Yes,
stepping
you
way
closed
back.
the public hearing and you seconded it. I got that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right, Mark, what's the procedure?
So, so the first action is to make a motion on the resolution that you have in your packet that adopts the CEQA findings.
Okay.
Okay,
move
so
to
since
approve.
it's a, okay.
Make a
So don't-
motion
yeah,
to approve the findings.
Okay, but it's a resolution, we always adopt it. Okay.
No, we'll do that after that.
Yeah, so
All right.
first
it's a
make
little
a-
confusing in the packet. I
I'm going to make a motion
apologize.
to do
Yeah.
what Mark said.
I will second that.
Okay, the motion is second to
To
Adopt
Adopt
the
the
findings.
resolution making the CEQA findings.
all right,
Yes.
adopt the resolution with the CEQA findings. Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so
Okay.
carried.
And the
Now you
second
want-
action would be to introduce the ordinance.
Okay. I'd like to introduce the ordinance.
Vice Mayor O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye,
Okay.
that's it?
Mr. Mayor, if I might
Yes.
respond briefly to one of the council members' comments about interest in hearing what the business and resident feedback is. We will certainly provide that information to the city council, and I would just note on a procedural comment, and that is that should the city council determine that you would like to see additional outreach made, that could certainly be direction from this city council prior to the second reading and final adoption of the ordinance taking place. So that additional opportunity is certainly always at your pleasure, and we will provide you with a update on the information that is both shared with the businesses as well as any feedback that we receive from them and from the public on the 16th and the 17th.
Okay, great. Item number 9, public comment. Items not on this agenda. Is the council's policy to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and interaction where appropriate? The Brown Act prohibits the council from discussing or acting upon any matter not agendized pursuant to state law. Would anyone like to address the council?
Just walk up here and tell them your name and your street.
Oh, all right. Okay. 3 minutes? Oh, okay. Hello, my name is Sherman. Dear Councilor, Happy New Year. And as a proud presenter of Shenyang Performing Arts in Bay Area, and I'm delighted inviting you and your guests to experience the extraordinary performance in March 20 to 24 in San Francisco Orpheum Theater. And based in New York, Shenyang is seeking revive the 5,000 years divine inspiration, tradition, Chinese culture, and drove before the Communism Party came. In fact, the show like this can no longer seen in China today. And pure art filled with waitress, beauty, and compassion can touch our soul, uplift us from the confinement of our daily life, and help us to rise above the difference that separate us. In spirit of Shenyang represent something everyone can appreciate it. Shenyang is truly priceless, and those who can see it is more fortunate. I inviting you and become one of those we march forward to a new year filled with hope and opportunity and prosperity. And here's one of the And we have some information about Shenyang Performing Art, and I would like to invite everybody who would hear that news, and feel free to come and check it out in the website, Shenyang Performing Art 2003.
Thank you. And Happy New Year to you also.
Happy New Year.
Right. Very good. Anyone else like to address the council?
Robert Rico, 7th Avenue. I'm here with a different hat on to just talk to you about the American Cancer Society's Relay for Life. Councilmember Abera and I and a few others are on the steering committee. It will be the 27th and 28th, 24 hours in April at Cappuccino High School. So there's some flyers in the back. The big kickoff kickoff party, which includes free food, is the 29th of this month at 5:30 at the Park and Rec. So there's some flyers in the back that you can take and share. Contact Ken or contact me, or in this case, Julie Pierce with the Cancer Society, and we hope that as we move forward, we'll have much participation in the planning and the forming of the teams and raising of money and having a good time as we do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else? All right, item 10, conduct of business. 10A is adopt a resolution acknowledging participation in the San Mateo County Subregion for the Regional Housing Needs Allocation Process, RHNA, and acceptance of the assigned housing share. Mark?
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, the purpose of this item is for the City Council to consider adopting a resolution accepting San Bruno's Regional Housing Needs Allocation numbers, the RHNA numbers, otherwise known as RHNA numbers. The RHNA process is required by state housing element law as part of every city's housing element update process, which occurs every 5 years. The RHNA number will become the housing target for San Bruno's next housing element, which will be due in December 2014. Although this deadline may seem far in the future, planning efforts are already beginning, and compliance efforts should start now. Housing element law provides that regional agencies may create subregions to address their housing needs. San Mateo County formed a subregion for the last housing element cycle and again for this cycle. The San Bruno City Council adopted a resolution authorizing the city to become a member of the countywide subregion in the current process as well as in the last process. The subregion includes all 20 cities in the county as well as the county itself. A key part of every housing element is the development of the Regional Housing Needs Allocation, the RHNA, which is the number of housing units and affordability levels that each jurisdiction must plan for. And here's how it works. The State Department of Housing and Community Development projects the total number of households that the entire state is projected to grow by over the next 8 years. HCD then distributes to each region in the state a total number of housing units that the region must plan for. Then each regional planning agency, in our case, the Association of Bay Area Governments, distributes the regional number to counties and assigns a number to each city within the county. State housing law does not this is a very important to emphasize, is that the state housing law does not require the construction of the allocated number of units, but rather the planning and the opportunity for those units. The allocations includes requirements for planning of affordable units for very low, moderate, and above moderate income households. With the creation of the San Mateo County subregion, the participating cities are able to determine a housing allocation methodology that is suited to local conditions, as well as an opportunity to negotiate trades between willing partners. The San Mateo County subregion methodology started with the ABAG assigned numbers. Then those numbers were adjusted based on a realistic review of available sites and conditions in each city. And then each community was offered the opportunity to negotiate trades amongst the cities. And those trades can continue to be negotiated until June 18th, 2013, which is when ABAG will adopt a sub-regional allocation for San Mateo County. San Bruno's RHNA number is 1,155 units. City staff believe that this is a reasonable number, and the reason for that is the city will have sites carried over from the current housing element. And in addition, the update of the zoning code to be consistent with the general plan will create new opportunities for housing sites, which will be sufficient to meet this target. This is without the approval of the Transit Corridors Plan, so it's independent of approval of the Transit Corridors Plan, which, if approved with increased height limits, would allow for more housing opportunities. If San Bruno had not participated in the sub-regional process, our number assigned by ABAG would have been 1,292 units, so the number was adjusted downwards based on the sub-regional process. And the table at the back shows the total number, or within the report, the total number and the distribution by income level. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mark? Ken?
In simple terms, so you said it, and I caught that last portion, and I tried to find it, but 1,155, you said it's lower because we already have gotten credit for.
It's not because we've gotten credit. It's because
you have potential. Go ahead.
No, we have a carryover from from what we were assigned previously, but that has nothing to do with what our number is now.
My concern is that we developed a 20-acre site that has over 1,000 units, and if we didn't have that, I can't really foresee where we would pick up, even in 8 years, 1,100, almost 1,200 units. Obviously, there's going to be some redevelopment, some development that hopefully will come along that has already been planned. But to me, not to the scale of 1,000 units. So, I mean, I'd like a more encouragement from staff as far as how you feel good about that and where you feel that that's still a good number.
Well, at this point, our last number was 973. And since the last RHNA cycle, we've built about 460 units within that time period, mostly at the crossing. There were also other units that weren't included in the RHNA allocation. So we had, in our last housing element, we had a total of 688 opportunities for housing development within the city. So we now have about 980 or so that can be carried over to the next housing element. And so that's the number of the units that could be built on the available sites. And that doesn't include the rezoning along El Camino Real, which the general plan calls for in the transit-oriented development and the mixed-use housing emphasis zone along El Camino Real. So once again, it's not building the units. You're not required to build the units. You just need to have the opportunity if some marvelous thing happened and. Right.
Okay. Any other questions of Mark? Action by the council?
I'll introduce the resolution.
Councilmember Andera.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Vice Mayor O'Connell.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. Item 10B is receive a report and provide direction to staff on the Civic Center painting project.
Honorable Mayor, Council members, good evening. Ray Razavi, Acting City Engineer, will make the presentation of this project. The project manager is Will Anderson, but he wasn't able to be here tonight, and Ray worked very closely in the development of this project with Will.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The Civic Center painting project comprised of painting the exterior of the three buildings, the City Hall, the Fire Station 51, which is the central fire station, as well as the main library. These three buildings have last been painted about 15 years ago, and they're definitely overdue for repainting, cleaning, and bringing it up to the current standard. This is the current condition of the three buildings. The worst of the problems are located in the south and the east walls. The paints are chipping away. They got moisture behind them, and they're peeling off and causing considerable damage to the exterior and actually infiltrating the outside skin of the buildings. Back in 2008, a color palette was developed by use of a color consultant. This went through extensive reviews and consideration of different colors and how they apply to certain parts of the building. And this color palette that you see before you is the one that was selected and proposed, accepted by the council. You see on the left, we're starting out with gray birch. That's pretty much most of the building would be colored in that gray birch hue. Then you have below it, you have pale ivory, as well as oxblood shade. It's got a dark reddish color. And on the right side, you see three shades of green: khaki green, black forest green, and Allentown green. These are the 6 colors that compose the whole 3 buildings, different parts. Looking at the color scheme, starting out with the front of the City Hall, As you can see on the left, we have the black forest green that applies to the top of the columns, at the very top. That's the fascia of the building. Right above that is going to be oxblood shade, the dark reddish, and that will be right at the very top of the fascia. And that will continue on, go across to the right and to the left side of the building at the very top. Then you can see pale ivory. That's going to be around the window trim, both on the right and on the left side, all around the building. The base of the building is going to be gray birch. The majority of the surfaces will be getting the gray birch treatment. Then we have khaki green, which is the columns right in front of the City Hall, as well as the sides of the steps, the retaining walls. Those also will be khaki green. Now finally we have an Allentown green that's going to be the cap, strip above the khaki green on the retaining walls at the very top. Moving on to the rear of the City Hall, that's the west side, we have pretty much the same color scheme. We got the oxblood shade at the very, very top. Then we have black forest green right below it. Then we have the khaki green coming down on the columns. Then we have the pale ivory, which would be the interior on the very top and the ceiling. And then we have the gray birch, which would be pretty much everything else on the side of the building. This is the color scheme for the library. This is looking at the library from the west side of the library towards the north entrance. What you can see again is the oxblood shade, the dark reddish color on the very top. Followed by the gray birch on most of the vertical surfaces. And then the khaki green on those outlining columns. This is the color scheme for the sculpture relief. We have 4 colors: khaki green, Allentown green, gray birch, and pale ivory. The sculpture is towards El Camino on the east side of the building. And one option we have is to color the sculpture with these 4 different colors, as opposed to have just gray birch going across. This is the color scheme for the fire station. Again, we have the oxblood shade at the very top. Below it would be the black forest green, the pale ivory around, and the Allentown and khaki green. One thing that we need to consider is the bricks. We have quite a few bricks all around the 3 buildings, as well as the landscape area and the retaining walls. We have 3 options for these bricks. The color consultant has proposed that we paint all brick surfaces as was proposed in the color scheme. We also can clean and seal all brick surfaces and leave them as is, as you can see in the middle picture, or we can apply stucco and then paint all brick surfaces, which would be the most costly of the 3 options. Then we have 3 types of bricks, 3 categories. Category 1 are the bricks around the building, kind of as part of the building. Category 2 are the bricks in the front by El Camino that are retaining walls. And category 3 are all the short walls and miscellaneous bricks around the landscape area. So the list of the issues is: number 1, the color palette that was approved as proposed in 2008. as well as the scheme of how to apply the 6 colors to the different buildings. The sculpture relief, whether we want to have that painted or just a background paint, as it is now. Brick treatments, in which categories, what kind of treatment you want, and also the landscaping. We will have to trim the landscaping back, so we're going to be losing some of the mass of the landscaping around the 3 buildings in order to access and be able to paint the buildings. And some of that will result on cutting back some of the trees, shrubs, etc. And some small shrubs will be removed because they're attached to the building. So our recommendation is we finalize the plans and specs with the color palette and scheme as proposed and paint the bricks. That will be the base bid. We could include a bid alternate if it is the wish of the council for additional color scheme on sculpture relief. We could include bid alternates on stucco if the council wishes to have different kind of a treatment on the bricks. We plan to advertise an award in spring of this year and complete by the end of the summer. That concludes my presentation. Open to any questions.
Questions of staff? Ken?
Basically, we're going to have a red ribbon along the tops of all the buildings.
That's correct.
And it's the fascia. It's the metal fascia flashing that
That's
runs
correct.
along the top. The difference between at the columns, at the entrances, there is no change in material, or there's no change in, there's no joint or anything between the black forest and the khaki for the verticals.
That's correct.
So it's just going to be a line. It's just going to be a change of color in the line.
That's how it was proposed, yes.
It's another thing I don't like. I'm okay with changing colors in different planes, or whether it's joints, or whether it's, patterns or whatever. But just like these, where you paint and you stencil or something, basically that's what you're doing. You're just stopping the paint and changing the color. And I don't think it's necessary. It's almost like, what's wrong with just doing black forest all the way around like it is now, and then have an accent of the red at the top? My other comment is that so none of the window trims will be in green at all.
That is correct.
Okay, that's a good thing. The walls on the left-hand side are stuccoed now.
That is correct.
Yeah, but there's no cap, so they're stuccoed on the top. So a question would be, how are you going to treat? Are you going to treat a cap there? Or are you going to add a cap? Because where I'm getting at is that, at least in the entrance of City Hall, personally, I would like to see the brick stuccoed, so that we get a frame of the front stairs. To what extent we stucco brick, I don't know. But I like that scheme, but I'm not really sure how you're going to treat the existing stuccoed terraces.
The existing stucco is basically going to be khaki green with a cap of Allentown green. Again, it's going to have that line. There's no separation in the type of material.
Okay.
It's kind of a lighter and a medium green difference.
Probably not even necessary then. My last comment is that on the relief sculpture, I'd just soon have it all one color. I think it's classic in having it in that right color, all in the same, and just let the sculpture, do all the detail. Those are my comments.
Okay. Anyone else? Michael?
Through the chair, thank you. You made a reference to the fact that the peeling paint, water's getting behind there, and there could be some damage. I noticed we had a $15,000 construction contingency included in what's included here. That $15,000 what could we expect that we could cover with that? Are we expecting to find any water damage in there, dry rotting, and how far would this get us?
Yeah, as you know, Councilmember, 15,000 is like very small amount, but for 3 buildings, it would be about 5,000 per building, roughly. We don't expect to be extensive damage. We have seen some minor damage. We have toured the buildings with painting contractors, and we have looked at the existing, and we don't see some very extensive damage. There is some damage around the fire station, those smaller, low buildings that are on the south side next to the parking lot that we may have to fix. There's also some damage in terms of some storm pipes that were attached to the building, and they have dislodged themselves from the building, so we have to fix those. We may use some city staff for that, or we may use the contractor to do that. But you are correct, 15,000, we are expecting that the damage would be minimal on all three buildings.
Okay, all right. And I know that, you know, deferred maintenance is always a bad thing, and we've been postponing this for a long time. I'm wondering, are there other projects that we have identified in these three buildings that may take precedence even over doing this? And I know the buildings look really bad, we need to do it, it's only going to get worse. But during one of the meetings we had at City Hall, we had a window fall in. So I'm wondering, are there other projects that we should possibly be looking at instead of this one?
Not on these three buildings. We don't have any other projects right now pending that would come ahead of this.
Okay.
A quick comment to that. There is one other project that has had, it is not directly a maintenance or a repair project, but there are a couple of projects at the fire stations having to do with seismic evaluation and improvements, both at Station 51 as well as 52, which is not on the table for painting. And there is an outstanding need to address some security issues in the interior of City Hall, but we have not actually completed a comprehensive evaluation of the maintenance condition of our buildings either. As the council is probably aware, we have a very limited funding for maintenance and repair and capital upgrade of general fund facilities, which all of these are. And so I would say it is, I would want you to not overlook the fact that we may be not looking at things that we should be looking at. So the fact that our capital budget does not include a lot of projects does not necessarily represent the potential need if we were to complete a comprehensive evaluation of maintenance, repair, and upgrade needs.
Right. And that was really what I was trying to get at, is we do have limited funds, and while painting would be really nice, I was just, you know, want to make sure that we're not overlooking something that might be more fundamental. You also mentioned seismic considerations at one of the fire stations. The bricks that we're talking about here, are those an integral part of the structure, or is it just, are those just a facade on these three buildings?
The bricks, most of the bricks are integral part of the structure. There are some that are only for facade, but it differs from building to building.
And so would we have concerns? I know brick's not probably a favorite building material in California because it's not necessarily the best seismic material.
Well, depends on how the brick is constructed. But in this case, most of these bricks don't go up more than a few feet from the ground up.
Okay.
And they are filled with concrete. So, and these are one-story structures. So if we had a second story, for example, on City Hall, then we would have to look at that viability of that brick. But with a one-story structure, there's less concern.
Okay. So we can't think about expanding.
We can't think about expanding, but at that time, we would have to look at and see, do the calculations and make sure we have enough shear walls and enough lateral support to carry the extra load on the second floor.
All right, thank you.
Rico?
On the library sculpture, I would say one color. As far as, so I would agree with the one color on that. On the brick in the front, and I'm just trying to envision, but isn't there toward the bottom portion holes for the drainage of the water, or is my memory correct? So my concern also is that obviously over time wears, shows. So I just want us to be mindful of that The vegetation that you're going to be cutting back, good. I think it's due. If you go back and look at some of those pictures at the San Bruno PD when they used to take their photos out in front of the old police station or in front of City Hall, it looks just like it is. As far as I think some of the same vegetation. So I think that would be nice to be spruced up. Was it also on the El Camino side to the left of the entrance of City Hall? Was it also to cut back that and put a City of San Bruno sign instead of what's currently on top of City Hall?
That was the original thought, Council Member, that we would cut back the left side and provide a City of San Bruno City Hall at this location. We are looking at what will be the best location for this. Right now, we have an overgrown shrub to the left of the City Hall entrance, plus an air conditioning unit that's right behind it. So we can take out the shrub, for example, and try to cover the air conditioning, make a nice fencing covering around it, and then apply the sign to that area. But another proposal that was done, we brought the color consultant back, and his proposal was to put the City Hall sign down on the retaining wall as you enter to the right side where you see the number 567. We could have that sign affixed to the retaining wall after we do the treatment, whether it's paint or stucco. Another option would be to redo the sign at the very top of the entrance. Right now the sign is not very obvious. We could replace that sign with a more prominent sign.
And then, okay. And then the last thing is, as you're going up those stairs, and Councilmember Rivera talked about to the right and the left, because right now it's just, I don't want to not do your word not inviting, but I mean, it's just, you just look at it, and obviously it's just, and I'm not thinking some better words to utilize, not an architect, but I just think it could be more alike. There could be some continuity to it, et cetera.
Were you thinking about a different type of paint, or?
No, I'm just saying, as you're walking up City Hall, as you know, looking at my way from the left to the right, you have two different sites.
That's correct.
So more continuity and consistency as you're coming up, it just has a better aesthetic appeal.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Irene?
I agree. I don't think the relief on the library should be anything but one color. I also agree that the front part of the City Hall where the bricks are on the right should be matched as closely as possible to the risers on the left, so that there is some kind of uniformity. The colors are fine with me, except the red. I don't understand why we need to cap anything with the red. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't add anything. It makes it look Christmassy, red and green. It's like, we don't need that. So I would just take the red off and leave all that the same color. I love Christmas, but I don't need it in July or something. As far as the rest of the bricks around, I don't know if we need to treat them in any way, except to clean and seal them would be my suggestion.
As opposed to painting?
Right. Yeah, I kind of like the look. I don't know if we need to paint them. Would there be, I guess you have to get a consensus. Is there any structural reason that we need to paint them? And doesn't that just kind of add more maintenance later on?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd leave, except for the front here, I'd leave the rest of the bricks alone.
And the front?
And clean and plain them. Pardon me?
I'm sorry, the front, did you say stucco and paint, or just
yes,
paint?
I would stucco and paint the right-hand side to match the left-hand side as much as possible. And I'd eliminate the red and clean and seal the rest of the bricks.
And then we do have some other areas under the windows that are bricks.
Yes.
And we could clean that and leave it as is?
That's my opinion. Yes, I would do that. I like those.
Just the retaining wall at the entrance?
Yes. That's me. I don't know if you get three.
I like the palette. I have had a lot of experience with this particular color consultant in San Francisco, does some pretty special things. So I think he knows what he's doing. I like the idea of the red across the top because it stops. It stops your visual, you know, go to sky. I believe where it says 567, that has to be skimmed and painted. Not the whole length of El Camino, but just the big fascia there, if you will. I also think the rest of the bricks deserve to be cleaned and painted because I think they're just going to add another color, if you will, to what is a well thought out palette. And I wouldn't have any objection to the sculpture being painted as long as it was very, very subtle, another color. If you went for gray birch to khaki green or something, I think it deserves a little recognition, and I think it would show nice. So the only stucco I'd like to see is over the 567 and going up the steps. The rest of it, I think, clean the bricks, paint the bricks, and you have my comments.
So the poor guy has 5 different comments.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, our intent tonight was to get general direction, actually, and thank you very much for the comments and the specific guidance. Our intent was to get enough direction to put together a bid package, which I believe that we have, and the City Council will have an opportunity to make more specific decisions at the time that we return to you with the award of contract. And if there are details that we need additional consultation with you about, we will ask for we'll ask the mayor for the formation of a subcommittee to do any more detailed analysis. But that your comments tonight have been very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. I think, you know, going forward, with what computers can generate nowadays, I think it would be fairly easy for the colorist or city staff to actually show us, you know, a picture instead of something up there and kind of a hazy description of what's in the packet. I'd like to see that a little more so we can see what happens when, you know, visually with the computer you take out the foliage and we can actually see what we're going to get. So I think that should be able to be demonstrated to us easily.
If I could add, that entrance is the most important part. And I think with the signage and what we're suggesting as far as trying to want to complement each side of the staircase, we should probably get some, you know, better, more detail on how that's going to be done. And I mean, I just don't think a painted stripe at the top of a wall is going to make it. I think we can do great things. The mayor can tell you that we can do good things with, you know, with stucco relief and stucco trim or whatever that could, in the same way, finish off the top of a wall. And, you know, so that's, to me, is very important. Yeah. And then also, you know, how much landscaping do we want to keep? I mean, it's just overgrown. There's too much, and it's a very detailed building, and it's like we got a color palette that's fighting with all these different trees and shrubs and, you know, materials. So I think simpler is probably the direction to go.
It's part of our plan to have a contract before the painting will happen, and basically to have all of the landscape cut back and done before the contractor will start on the painting itself. And having your feedback and input now before that will take place is very critical.
If I could just one last thing. You're an engineer and you're a public works director. Do we have anyone in this staff that is really a painting contractor? Are we depending? I mean, how are we to trust that, you know, that the prices and what's going to be happening is, you know, is actually the right price or a fair price and is, you know, is the right thing to do. We need that impartial professional, you know, and I think previously we had the consultant, and that's what we went on. But, you know, times have changed. You know, it's been a few years now, and, you know, do we have someone? Are we looking to someone to? Or are we just going on those same numbers?
However, he indicated he already requested one painting contractor to provide us with his feedback, and took around the building, and he gave us already a estimate and helped us to make this recommendation, and a recommendation that the budget and the estimate is in the right range at least.
Okay. Staff need anything else? Good.
I think the department and staff has enough direction from you at this time to proceed for the next step.
Great. Item 10C, Rico, you had something?
No, I just wanted to say thank you, because it's been since 2008.
Yeah.
And I think we got a lot of good information, some things I hadn't thought of back then, so thank you.
Item 10C, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a consultant engineering services contract with West Yost Associates to provide engineering services for pressure regulating stations on the SFPUC Service Connections project in an amount not to exceed $120,860.
Honorable Mayor, Council members, Joseph Cervantes is the newest addition to our engineering division, and this will be his first presentation. He came to the city from city of San Jose, and he has already taken on huge responsibilities. He is responsible for managing and reviewing all of the development. In the same time, he is a key player on many of our major CIP projects.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you're likely aware, is this on? No. Okay. As you're likely aware, the city obtains most of its water supply from water wells and from SFPUC pipelines. Currently, the city has 5 turnouts or connections to these SFPUC pipelines. This project will address 3 of the 5 connections or turnouts. The other one is already regulated, and that's at the Sneath and National intersection. And another is at the Whitman Way and Cortlandt Drive, and that particular location does not need regulation. This project will install 2 pressure regulating stations at the Sneath and Cherry intersection, and 1 pressure regulating station at the Bay Hill Drive. Now, basically, what these pressure regulation stations do is reduce the pressures from the SFPUC connections. And the benefit for doing this is that the water distribution system can now operate at its design condition, which is at the lower pressures. And this project can also benefit the upcoming Well 15 project. As an example, we could save approximately $90,000 in costs just by implementing lower pressures in that area. And we could save approximately $43,000 in just electrical pumping alone. So in a 10-year span, that could be, closer to $1 million. We went through a competitive RFP process, and we are recommending West Yost to do the design on this project. And we're recommending them because of their familiarity with the water system in San Bruno. And not only that, they've also recently installed 2 pressure regulating stations for the Crestmore Neighborhood Reconstruction Project. And our water division is very satisfied with the stations that they've recently built. The design is expected to take about 3 months, and construction will be about 6 months afterwards. And that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Any questions of staff? Action?
I'll introduce the resolution.
Vice Mayor O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Rivera.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. That was kind of painless, huh? Wasn't too bad. Yeah.
They're not always like this.
Don't tell them that, Irene.
He's hooked now.
Item 10D, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to amend the contract with Parsons Brinkerhoff for construction management services for the San Bruno grade separation project in an amount not to exceed $75,000 for a total contract amount not to exceed $402,000.
The construction for the grade separation project started back in the fall of 2010. Prior, the construction started in a memorandum of understanding. The city and JPB agreed on all of the details how this project will be managed during the construction. This was very important and very detailed agreement to guarantee the success of the project and to make sure that the interest of the city will be protected during this very big construction project in the middle of our downtown. To uphold the responsibilities included in this memorandum of understanding by JPB, the city entered in a service support contract with Person Brinkerhoff to provide that oversight and for the project and support and represent the city and represent the city interest. The contract was up to not to exceed $327,000 with the basic assumption that the effort needed for this project will be less than a full-time person with about 80-hour average in a month. This support was critical for the success of this project. The intent and the result was that a very experienced person will proactively foresee any upcoming issues or problems and will be able to address those problems before those issues before those will become problems. Just to give you two examples, during the utilities underground utility construction for this project, this is a follow-up project to the construction of the BART, and unfortunately in that whole right-of-way is very limited information on the utilities as the result of the BART construction, and many issues were recognized proactively during the construction of the underground utility and coordinated with our utility service managers to bring solution to all of those problems and to make sure that even making some changes in the design itself was necessary to make sure that the utilities will basically will be the right design in place to minimize the ongoing maintenance and operation for water and sewer and storm through that corridor. Another example is very positive and constructive coordination managing any complaints was part of the agreement that at the end of each week JPB will provide us with a log and list of all of the complaints and how they address those complaints. This was another very useful and proactive measure in place, and you see the result that considering the size of this and the complexity of this type of projects, so far, I think the city can be very pleased with the management of all of the complaints and any impact on the public, which wasn't avoidable, but certainly they were mitigated as much as possible and feasible. As you know, unfortunately, the contract initially expected to be done last year was delayed with 1 year due to unforeseen complication for the underground utilities. Reason why it's important for us to extend also our contract with PB to accommodate for this additional time frame needed to have this support. To minimize the overall cost for this service agreement, the time necessary for this support was decreased from 80 hours to 50 hours in average a month, knowing that the biggest support what the city will needed during the underground construction. And in our judgment, this 50-hour average a month will be enough to provide the needed support for us until the conclusion of this project. This reduction of time already was implemented from last July, foreseeing the need for extension of the contract was already implemented, the reduction in time. And with this additional $75,000 increase of the contract, this will enable us to have that support until the conclusion of the project. The funding for this project is available in our capital improvement project and is redevelopment property tax coming from the redevelopment property tax trust fund, if you have any question.
Any questions of staff or action by council?
Through the chair, before I introduce the resolution, I'd say, I mean, we've all been involved in the BART construction, and I think this construction is different as night and day. I know that about a year ago, we had some issues with some residents and businesses, and and our consultant and the JPB cooperated, and we took care of that. So I'd like to say that, I don't want to jump the gun, but no news is good news, and that we still have a year to go, and now that we're out of the ground, and hopefully it's a lot more easier to monitor, and deal with the construction. Very pleased. With that, I will approve it and adopt the resolution.
Councilmember Ibera.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Vice Mayor O'Connell.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. Finally, item 10E, receive a report and provide direction to staff regarding the Olympic wastewater pump station rehabilitation and force main replacement project.
Honorable Mayor, Council members, the purpose of the presentation tonight is to provide you with information on the Olympic pump station and to seek your input and direction for this project. The rehabilitation of the need for the rehabilitation of the Olympic pump station was included in our 2001 wastewater master plan. Subsequently, the project was included in our capital improvement plan with the intent to rehabilitate this pump station. Our thinking later further evolved, and with the intent to use gravity for the sewer discharge instead of pumping the sewer, the scope of the project was modified to include an abandonment of this pump station with the intent to discharge the flow to Westboro Water District and then to take to the Daly City treatment plant. When the work started on this project and more information became available, became obvious that based on those additional information, that is important and critical to have a analysis, a very detailed analysis done to compare those two different alternatives and to let the data and the information to really lead us to whatever recommendation will be better for the overall public benefit. Wang is a project manager for this project, and he did the detailed analysis comparing those two alternatives. Then the analysis was peer-reviewed by our consultant for the wastewater management plan, and then based on their comment, those were incorporated in our analysis. And what you will hear tonight, the result of the combination of those two efforts.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. The Olympic pump station is located in the northwest corner of the city, near the South San Francisco city boundary. And as you can see on the site map up there, the shaded area is the tributary area for the pump station. The pump station serves about 467 single-family homes, and it discharged into a force main that goes along Olympic Drive, makes the left turn south on Oakmont, and then it goes by gravity at the intersection of Evergreen and Oakmont. The next slide here shows the pump station on a street view. As you can see, the equipment on there are kind of antiquated and spread pretty much out there within the station. And regarding the current condition of the pump station, like I say, this pump station was constructed in the 1960s, and the station itself is in pretty decrepit condition due to its age. It is an outdated design. The dry well is where the pumps are located, where the discharge manifold is located, and also the pumps, they're located below ground, and it makes it difficult for maintenance and employees to go perform the duty. They have to actually go down into the dry pit, and potentially this is a confined space, unsafe condition. They have to carry the tools down a vertical ladder with metal rung, and then go and perform their tasks within the pit. The pumps are also in need of replacement and requiring constant maintenance and repairs. There's also an antiquated generator that runs on natural gas, which is not the preferred method of generator. Now, the more acceptable way is to have a self-contained diesel tank that is below the generator, so that in a real catastrophe that, natural gas might be shut off, and then the generator is essentially useless. The force main itself, it's about half a mile long. It's in poor condition due to its age. And all these conditions makes this a potentially SSO, which is sanitary sewer overflow prone situation. One important issue also is that consent decree with the baykeeper requires that the city make a determination on the Olympic pump station, whether to rehabilitate the pump station or to abandon the pump station by December 31st, of 2013, and also to complete all work by July 2018. As you can see, this is a picture of the dry well with a pump pit. And, you know, it's a relatively tight space for staff to work on. And even though it's intended to be a dry well pump pit, you can see it's at times it can get pretty wet from leakage of equipment. So I prefer to make it an unsafe condition. Okay, next picture here, it shows the antiquated emergency generator. It's definitely vintage, and it's runs on natural gas. So the detailed comparison and analysis of the two options, with option A being to create a sewer bypass and discharge to the Westboro Water District, and then eventually to Daly City, North San Mateo County Sanitation District. With option B is to replace and rehabilitate the pump station and also the force main. The detailed analysis of these two options compare the total cost and also other intangibles. For the cost comparison, the option A, of creating a bypass to Westboro Water District and Daly City, the total cost for 30 years as calculated is just about $12.6 million. And this cost included a one-time connection fee of $1.2 million to North San Mateo County Sanitation District. The city also to pay sewer user fee for the 467 homes to North San Mateo County Sanitation District. The city will also pay 15% of the annual operation and maintenance costs to Westboro Water District for the shared sewer facility that the sewage will be en routed to Daly City. And the costs also include a capital cost and annual operation maintenance for the tie-in sewer connection, which is a relatively short distance of pipe, about 200 feet from the pump station down the street to a manhole on Shannon that is in the city of South San Francisco. And it also takes into account the salvage value of the existing pump station. For option B, to replace the pump station and force main, the total cost for 30 years is calculated as right around $11 million. And this includes the capital cost for the design, the construction, and also staff salary for the replacement of the pump station. Then there is the annual operation and maintenance cost for the pump station and force main, and the sewer treatment cost to South San Francisco for the sewage of the 467 homes. In addition, we also take into account the salvage value of the new pump station at the end of the 30 years period. And now with the pros and cons of the two options. For option A, the sewer bypass to Westboro Water District and Daly City, the pros are the gravity system is definitely a more reliable system than the pump system. And with that sewer bypass connection, the city would not have to maintain a pump station or the force main. And one big plus of the option A is that it recognizes the value of regional service delivery, which is for different agencies to share their facilities and as well as services. On the downside, this option provide the unpredictable escalations in the North San Mateo County Sanitation District sewer user fee, and also the Westboro Water District, the capital improvement requirement, being that the city is required to contribute to 15% of Westboro Water District's annual operation and maintenance, including repair of the shared facilities. And another minus of for this option is that there could be potential disputes over sanitary sewers overflows, the source of the cost of a sanitary sewer overflow, the property damage, maybe question of responsibility of any hazardous material that are being discharged into the sewer system. And now with option B, replacing the pump station and the force main, as you can see in the previous cost comparison, there is a slightly lower overall cost for option B to replace the pump station, $12.5 million versus the $11 million. So it's an order of $1.5 million over 30 years. With the city maintaining the pump station and the force main, it would be more predictable for the city regarding the annual cost escalation in fees, sewer rate. Additional benefit is that the city will retain control, and that we can manage any of the associated risks with policy decisions. And plus, with the pump station and force main, the Westboro Water District connection can always still remain there as a Plan B emergency discharge location. So, in conclusion, the detailed analysis identified the pros and cons associated with each one of these two options. And the alternative, option A, to abandon the pump station and connect to the Westboro Water District and North San Mateo County Sanitation District, that option was previously thought of as an obvious preferred alternative. I mean, just construct a short piece of pipe, go over there, abandon the pump station, more cost effective, simple, and green. And now, with these detailed analysis, we realize that it's no longer that obvious. There are other issues to consider. And weighing the pros and cons, staff's recommendation is to go with option B, to replace the pump station and the force main. Thank you, and I'm here to answer any questions.
All right, any questions? Rico?
I just had two quickly, then I want to listen to my colleagues to better understand. On option one, you said there's the staff report to the director or manager, the one-time connecting fee of $1.2 million, which I believe would be the 467 homes. within the area that would get serviced. So if they're, and I'm just not understanding, but if they're already connected, why is there a fee? And I understand when we have Marisol or a new, project, you have to have a connection fee, and there's a cost associated, but I don't understand the 1.2 million to connect, a connection fee for something that's already connected.
Okay. The 467 homes currently discharged to San Bruno sewer system, and Daly City is requesting the one-time connection fee based on the current connection fee rate of $2,600 per home to connect to their system, to add to their sewer system. And that's why they're requesting the $1.2 million as the connection fee that is previously not within their system.
Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to understand and visualize, what are they doing for this $1.2 million? That, I understand there's a fee associated with things, but I'm trying to understand something that's connected and then you're switching it. And so maybe I'm just missing something.
From Westboro and Daly's city point of view, this would be a new connection to their system, and exactly how the city of San Bruno basically charges capacity charge. That $1.2 million is in essence a capacity charge, like the city requesting from any new connection to our system. That is their charge for those additional
So the $1.2 million is because we want you to operate or maintain this. Here's a $1.2 million bill, and we'll take it. Not they're doing a lot. They are doing a lot, but I mean they're taking that, and that's, you want to call it user fee, whatever the word you want to use. But that's 1.2 million.
Yes, in our fee structure is a capacity charge, and they are charging the same type of capacity charge.
I think in option B, we said that there was a salvage value. So I guess that means, and when I hear that, I mean, to me, that means you're selling. What are we salvaging that there's going to be value?
In salvage value means, in the analysis, we use the present value, which is to bring all the cost items, expenses, out-of-pocket expenses for 30 years, converted into current day's dollar. So in order to count all the expenses, at the end of 30 years, we have a pump station that might still be of some value. There's some salvage value of the property. Some of the equipment might still be able to get a resale value, and that is being used as an offset, a credit. The salvage value is actually a credit applied to the total cost, an offset.
Does that mean, like we're talking about the pipes that are in the ground and all of that, that is a salvage value in addition to the pump station, and that's where you're attributing that? So that means we would theoretically dig up the pipe in order to salvage it, which is, or am I? You can tell I'm not an engineer.
Based on the recent master plan study, the average lifespan of a pipe, a sewer pipe, could be in San Bruno area, could be as high as 90 years. So at the end of 30 years, we assign a salvage value because theoretically, we still have 60 years of lifespan of that pipe. And that value is something that the city will own. And so that is being applied as a credit.
Let me see if I could add additional thought. The idea in doing this analysis is to try and make an apples-to-apples comparison and to start with a blank sheet of paper to do a thoughtful, complete apples-to-apples analytical evaluation. And in order to do that, it's an analytical tool, essentially, to be complete in including the useful life value of the asset at the end of the 30-year period. So we've done the analysis for the 30-year period, but there's still some life left in those equipments and fixtures. And so in order to do a complete analytical analysis or a comparison, you have to include that value. You're not going to dig up the pipes, you're not going to sell them, you're not going, you're not likely to do that. But in order to do the comparison for the financial value of each of the options, you need to include that value in order to make sure that you've compared thoroughly and carefully.
Just one final question, and for now, and I'll open to whoever, of course. On option A, and then versus option B, that also is taking into account all of the staff resources, vehicles, time, overtime, call-outs, testing, all of those attributes that would go on in a 30-year time. That also is equated into that A versus B?
That's correct. All the staff time, operation, maintenance has been accounted for both of the options in different ways, different amount, but accounted for in both options.
Anyone else? Ken?
I'm just trying to get my hands around this. Was there like a policy decision at some point that said we really don't want another city taking care of our residents? I mean, is that something that maybe we should decide on? I mean, this seems like a lot of data, a lot of analysis and everything was done here. And I mean, for me, $1.2 million connection fee for just to buy into their system would have been the deal breaker. But now it's like we're really, there was like some real thought process in doing that. As a policymaker or decision maker here, I don't think that would be good business for us to do something like that. We've already got a partnership with South San Francisco. Now to get involved in Daly City, through South San Francisco, just because gravity is better, I don't know.
This is the time for that decision and the input for the policy direction. That's the reason why staff is here tonight and asking your input and direction. Was necessary to conduct this analysis to be able to provide you with a certain level of information to help you to make those policy determination and decisions.
I'm just thinking that, I mean, why we even, just because it was so close to the border, is that where we went to that direction?
At that time, from a technical point of view and the overall public benefit point of view, seemed logical at that time that what really is mattered the overall cost for the public. And jurisdictional barriers should not necessarily, in today's environment, when you are sharing resources across the board with all of our agencies around us, would have made a practical and sense, then would have been a reasonable and logical solution. You always want to go gravity whenever is possible to save the ongoing maintenance cost and operational cost, the electricity cost, that always in long term, the tendency is that you will have some kind of benefit going gravity versus pumping. That was the initial point of view, and that's why staff went down on that direction and to research that alternative.
Well, I'm glad. I think I'm glad that keeping the system is $1.5 million cheaper over 30 years than sharing the system. I don't know how it would react because we asked questions answered questions saying that we didn't know what sort of control we'd have over Daly City. We didn't know what our residents, those 467 residents, would have to deal with. We don't know what's going to happen over the next 30 years. What if it was cheaper to do the bypass? I mean, that's the dilemma, and I'm glad I don't have to make that decision.
And was important to provide you with those information. At that time, staff didn't know about, okay, will it be 1.2 million capacity charge, or didn't know the term of what kind of agreement would be feasible to reach. How you see in your document, you already have a draft document included. That means staff really went through those discussion and negotiation with Westboro and Daly City also to be able to provide with some information how that would looks like, what that really would mean for the city and for the residents, and also what the cost would be.
Thank you.
Through the chair, a couple of comments. I just want to say I think that if we do have a policy, it should be our policy to always look regionally at these solutions rather than trying to isolate our systems from their systems where it makes logical sense. I think, unfortunately, we weren't able to come to the terms that were agreeable that would have made this cost effective, because it seems like that the Westboro solution was, from a technical standpoint, the better solution, but financially it didn't work out, which is unfortunate. But I do think we need to continue looking at those larger solutions, and so I commend the department on having the foresight to look into that, and I think we should continue to do that. And I also appreciate the level of detail in this report. We don't normally see something that's this detailed, and having that financial analysis really helps drive the point, and so I really appreciate that, so thank you.
Irene?
I was just going to echo what Michael said. I really do appreciate what you've done, and I know all the pages we have in front of us took a lot of time and effort and thoughtfulness, so it does help with our decision process. Thank you.
I agree. Also, I think it's very important to at least have the analysis in front of us, whether it shows equal or some big disparity. I just like the idea of local control, especially what we've been through. Seeing what we've been through the last number of years with SSOs and things, I think we have so much more local control. There's no guarantee that another agency signed up with us is going to increase rates on, have 467 homes in a city where everybody's paying the same thing except for 467 residences. It doesn't make sense to me, so I'm obviously for option B. Okay?
I think staff has enough direction.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 11, report of commissions, boards, and committees. There aren't any reports this evening. Item 12, comments from council members. I would just like to say, based on what we've heard this evening, we just got a brief report the other night about the SSO count, which has gone down considerably. And it has a lot to do with some of the complaints we've all received about our new water bills, or water, sewage, and garbage bills. But in fact, what's happening in the city is actually paying off. Our SSOs are down, a tremendous amount, and I think a lot of it has to do with, what the people are paying and what we're able to do with those monies. We bit the bullet a long time ago. It was hard to do, and we're getting complaints now, but it's actually paying off, and it's going to save us a lot of money in the long run. I'd rather see the money go into the streets and repairing than to the Baykeeper or some of these other organizations that in fact are cottage, I believe. So that's my comment for tonight. Any other comments from council members?
Through the chair.
Ken?
I don't know if it was mentioned, but I was reading a report of the Senior Advisory Board, and I noticed that they adjourned their meeting in the memory of Arlen Sponsler. It's a surprise to me. He died in mid-December, I believe, and it was a shock. And so, he's a neighbor, longtime resident, and a longtime volunteer in this community. So, at the very least, we can adjourn in his memory.
I agree, and in addition to that, I'd like to bring up something that happened just before Christmas. We in San Bruno know only too well about grief. And another community in our country, for a totally different reason, experienced a horrible amount of grief this last holiday season. That was Newtown, Connecticut, where 26 people were killed, 6 adults and 20 little kids. And so I would like to close this, adjourn this council meeting in memory of all of those individuals as well as Mr. Sponsler. So please join me in a moment of silence. I thank you, and this meeting is adjourned until our next regular city council meeting here on January 22nd.
That's me. They get all intimidated.
Good evening and welcome to the San Bruno City Council meeting of January 8th, 2013. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Salazar.
Here.
Vice Mayor O'Connell.
Here.
Mayor Ruane.
Here.
Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Ibarra. Hi. Here.
I'd like to thank the Garden Club for the arrangement they always provide for our meetings. Thank you. Carol, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We don't have any specific announcements this evening. We do have a presentation, and that's to receive an update from the San Mateo County Mosquito and Vector Control District. Mr. Rico.
My assistant, your assistant, Ben Russmeisel from the district is going to help us get started. I want to thank you and the council and the city for allowing us to give you a quick little update. Basically, we want to help keep San Bruno mosquito free. So we're going to talk about mosquitoes in San Bruno, and if I can make this work. Okay, I'll push the right button and go this way. The task of the mosquito district is basically to keep San Bruno mosquitoes free. There are three or five, I forgot which, varieties of mosquitoes that are prevalent sporadically throughout the year. So there's always somewhere in the county, a couple in this area, mosquitoes all the time. So it's not just 2 or 3 month. We're here to serve you. The San Mateo County Mosquito and Vector Control District serves San Bruno. They respond to residents' requests regarding mosquitoes, rodents, yellow jackets, etc. Recently, as your appointed trustee, I attended a half-day trustee day, which we have every year, where we were brought up to date on a whole lot of things, and I want to summarize a little bit of that. And part of the reason that Ben is here today is the aspect that I like best of trustee day is I get to sit down with Ben for a half hour or whatever, pick his brains. He gets to complain to me or tell me where there are good and bad things. So I'm going to try and cover a little bit of that. Also, after the trustee day, which I haven't done for 3 or 4 years, I took about 2 hours and I rode around with Ben. We were out in the Mills Field area. We were tromping around. You'll see a couple pictures of what he does on a weekly, almost a weekly, if not more often basis, and to keep San Bruno mosquito free. Also, before trustee day, the last couple of years, I've sent him 3 or 4 questions relative to where are there problems or specific aspects of San Bruno, and he was able to research these, and I'm going to go through some of the questions and his answers. I asked him if there were any habitual problem areas, and his answer, since he took over San Bruno in May, and the district every 2 or 3 years rotates the technicians around, so he had been down the peninsula, but he's been with the district for 10 years, thereabouts? Okay, so he had only been up here since May, but the district does have real good computer records, and so he was able to say that there are basically no habitual problem areas. Most of the impound type sources are only now beginning to fill up with water. However, Ben predicts that Mills Field will present an ongoing challenge, and I have some pictures to show about Mills Field as a potential to produce a large number of mosquitoes. Most of the focus will be spent on inspection, treatment, and to keep the population of the mosquitoes at a minimum. The district tries to treat and kill the larva stage of the mosquito before they get into the stage that flies off. So if we the district, Ben, does his job right, you won't see the mosquitoes flying around. This is just pictures that we took a week or so back. This is out in the Mills Field area. This is some of the area, impound, as they call it, standing water that needs to be sampled, needs to be treated. There are tules out there. This is under the overpass going into the airport. There are tule areas out there, and before let me go to this. Whoops, go back. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I asked him what assistance the city of San Bruno staff, like possibly the Parks Department, could offer from time to time. And the preface on this, when we were having a lot of dead birds found, the Park Department stepped up last year and asked and got the buy-in from your various employees that work out in the park, excuse me, to be more eyes, and if they found these dead birds, they promptly reported them to the district. And Ben's answer was that the parks in the city of San Bruno are in all-around good shape. They do have water runoff that flows through the park, but it's fed from above sources and tends to move unobstructed. He did notice that some of the grassier areas at times are oversaturated even in the summer, and perhaps the park department could either try to water less or take other actions to maybe avoid pooling in the grassy areas. The mosquitoes need a non-moving water to breed. If there's a lot of water movement or a lot of air movement, they will not breed as readily. This just shows where there is controlled water flowing through the park. As long as it's flowing, it's not a real concern. But I'm sure Ben checks these every once in a while when he does do his sampling. Asked him about how well, or are there problem areas that the district has encountered working with the San Francisco airport, since it's adjacent to the San Bruno city limits, if you will. Basically, Mills Field is in the airport jurisdiction, and Ben says there have been no issues with the airport regarding the access and or treatment to Mills Field. Another question, how well, or are there problems working with Caltran where their tracks run through San Bruno? A year or so ago, early in the construction, there was some standing water problems with Caltran through the district. We reported that to Caltran, and they cleaned that up real quickly. And Ben says that so far the current grade separation is, or his answer, the grade separation project has not interfered in any way with mosquito inspection or treatment. Also, we asked, or I asked, were there problems with the school district? Some of the schools in the past had reported ground nesting yellow jackets, and if the school can basically pinpoint where the nests are, the mosquito district will go out and eradicate them. There had only been one school, John Muir, which had an ongoing problem with ground nesting yellow jackets, and then treated roughly 5 nests up there on the property. He is on a first-name basis with Dr. Dunleavy, the principal, and I think they've even exchanged cell numbers so that as necessary she can call him directly. I've talked to her in the past on this, and she is real happy with the response. This is just showing a picture of John Muir School. Information on the results of the newly installed storm drain screening as it relates to additional time that the district may have to spend to adequately inspect and treat the hundreds of storm drains opening in the city. And Ben's answer is that the storm drain screening had not prevented regular spraying of the catch basin. The spray wands can fit through the holes. During heavy rains, though, However, leaf litter and, okay, I didn't push anything. I'll go on without that. The city had been very responsive in listening to the request and cleaning up the garbage in the gutters. So everything has been going good on that project. I had a picture of the storm drain, but basically they put a metal perforated grate vertically at the back under the raised concrete. We also asked, are there any aspects or problems that the district has with the, if present, with the city of San Bruno or its residents that could become a big concern in improving or correcting. And Ben said the best thing residents can do to help eliminate mosquito breeding sources is to, that's all right, I don't need it, Miriam, I can work without it, is to dump out containers that fill with rainwater, maintain their ponds or fountains better, and if they do not currently receive our services, we do supply mosquito fish for ponds. They can call and one of our technicians will inspect and or treat the source, and if it's really a source that needs constant updating or monitoring, they will put it in their database, and that triggers them to go out more often. I had a picture of standing water on a sidewalk, happened I think be outside of John Muir down on Crestmore. It's standing water. It's not one that you can dump, but if residents have standing water like that, they can take the broom, they can take the rake or whatever and try and move it away. If there's a lot of car traffic and a lot of wind movement, it will not as readily offer a location for the mosquitoes to breed. But any water is bad if it's standing. Also, I had a slide in there that at your December council meeting, Public Works Director Jim Porter reported that he was getting emergency permits to do work in Cupidro and clean some of the tules out, and we were able to see when Ben and I went out a couple of weeks ago that they had done that, and the water was moving much faster through there and obviously wouldn't overflow, but the faster it moves, the less that it is a problem for Ben or the residents. Relative to the Crestmore rebuild area, Ben said that work in the Crestmore neighborhood is well underway and currently presents no problems with access. In the past, there had been certain roads that were diverted, but currently everything is acceptable and he can get to where he needs to go. He had a couple general comments. I kind of asked him if the district was supplying him with all the tools, the education, the background that he needed so that we could expect him to do what we expected him to do. That's a bad sentence, but anyhow. Ben advised me that he felt that he had all the tools and resources to continue to inspect and treat San Bruno areas of concern. He felt that the summer hires, who you can see driving around in the white right-hand drive Jeeps, are a big help with him because it frees him up to respond to service calls and keep the district on a schedule for about once a month inspecting and treating every storm drain in San Bruno. And there's like, what, 30,000 or something? Maybe that's too big, but I mean, they attempt to treat every one of the storm drains once a month. He also felt that he was offered and has taken advantage of many of the continuing education classes, so he's staying on top of the latest methods for inspection and treatment. Our lab director discussed a number of ways the district will be expanding our testing and surveillance to better and more promptly respond to finding of positives in the county. We don't want the positives, but the faster that we can find them, the faster that the district can respond and take appropriate action. We will still send secondary samples to the state to let them double check, but it will allow us to respond quicker. The lab is now going to be able to do more in-house testing on resistance to the, I hate to use the word chemicals, on the agents, the bacterial agents that we use, we switch from time to time, and so we can make sure that the mosquitoes don't become less susceptible to what we're using to treating. The one thing downstream that the district is going to be more aware of is there's an Asian tiger mosquito that has started to show up in Southern California. It is really bad with some of the things that it can carry. So we are going to start testing as necessary. There we go. Thank you, Miriam. Up here. So kind of wrapping it up, continuing success. We're going to have more surveillance. We're going to have faster testing. That will mean faster treatment, fewer mosquito problems, and hopefully a happier mosquito-free San Bruno. And if you have questions, the district phone number is 344-8592. Ben is here tonight, and he would attempt to answer questions if you have questions. Tomorrow and beyond, I am your appointed trustee, and I'll either answer your questions or direct them to the district and report back. And
Thank you, Robert.
Ben and I are happy to answer any questions, or thank you again for the opportunity.
Any questions of our representative?
Yes,
Ken?
Mr. Mayor. Bob and Ben, I guess, thank you for all your efforts. It just crossed my mind when you said the Crestmore rebuild, which is adjacent, which was adjacent to the canyon, and we do have,
I don't know what he's going to
we do have significant canyon area. Have you gone through the canyons and see if there's any standing water or little pockets here and there that may not be accessible?
Well, as far as the canyons are concerned, at this time of year, the water is usually moving pretty fast, and it's draining properly. However, in the summertime, it does pothole up, and those areas, which are mostly creeks, are on a checklist that get trimmed and or treated by us on a monthly schedule.
And my other question is that we do have a couple of multifamily developments, like the Place and Shelter Creek, and there's significant landscaping all over. I mean, are they cooperating, and making sure that their homeowners and their residents are being prudent and taking care of standing water?
I'm not aware of any issues in that area. Most of the time with newer developments, they're drained. Oh, they're older ones. I'm sorry. I'm not entirely familiar with the area you're referring to, but yeah, the drainage is usually pretty good in those areas.
Okay.
Any other questions? Well, Robert, once again, thank you for all the time you put in. I know it's pretty extensive.
That allows me to be happy and give you good reports.
Good. Thank you very much. Item 6, approval of the minutes of the regular city council meetings of November 27th and December 11th, 2012. Any errors, changes, omissions? Seeing none, they will.
On November 27th, I had a, excuse me.
Carol?
I had entered Councilmember Salazar nominated Tim Ross to the Citizens Crime Prevention and passed with one eye, and I should have had failed with one eye.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Let the minutes stand approved as amended. Thank you. Item 7, consent calendar. All items are considered routine or implemented earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested by a council member, citizen, or staff.
Through the chair.
Rico?
The request moving item D.
Item D.
Please.
Okay. Anything else?
If there's nothing else, move to approve the rest of the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion second on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Item D, adopt a resolution approving the submittal of a proposal to San Mateo County Area Agency on Aging for Older Americans Act funding of senior center programs for fiscal years 2013-2015.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only reason I had pulled this was just to acknowledge not only the great activity and work that is done, but also to acknowledge in our staff report that this comes from the fundraising efforts, participants, donations from the senior citizens, as well as from the Nonprofit Nutrition Site Council. And so they put a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort into helping to offset some of the costs so this program can continue on and be as successful as it is. Didn't mean for you to have to get up, John, but if you wanted to add anything, you're welcome to, but please do if you want. So I just wanted to acknowledge, unless there's something else you want to add.
All I want to say is that having been responsible for the program for the last 7 months, I myself am very encouraged and impressed by what the seniors do. Seeing it up close is really something really quite amazing. So thank you for your comment.
Thank you, sir.
Action on item D.
There's no other comment.
Go ahead.
Move to approve item D.
Second?
Motion and second on the question. All in favor?
Aye.